You hear a breeze before you feel it, the soft hush of wind brushing past leaves almost like breath, almost like a whisper. Somewhere, a wind chime swings lazily, unsure whether it's meditating or dancing. The light is dim like the hour just. For sunset, when everything decides it's okay to slow down, you sit not quite on purpose. It just happens, as if your body remembered something your mind forgot. In this quiet, you begin to notice things that don't usually make it past the rush. The subtle texture of air on your skin, the invisible weight of your spine holding you upright, the slight creak of your own breath. And so, this begins. Now, let's be honest, chances are, you won't make it through this conversation. You'll drift, maybe into thought, maybe into sleep, maybe into some rabbit hole about vintage Japanese teacups, and that's perfectly fine. This is not a race, it's more of a slow float. If you feel like supporting the space, you can gently press that like button. It doesn't mind the pressure. Subscribe if you like more evenings like this one, and if you feel moved to share, leave a comment with your location and what time it is where you are right now. It helps remind us all that we're quietly here together, scattered across the world. Now, let's gently settle into tonight's thought. One lesson from Lao Tzu that could change your life. He once wrote, "Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself?" You might want to write that down or forget it and let it sneak back in when needed. It has a way of doing that. Patience is not just about time, it's about stillness, about trust, but not poking the metaphorical pond every few seconds to check if it's clear yet. You know the feeling, the urge to fix, to refresh the page, to figure it out. Sometimes the best move is no move at all. There's a Japanese Zen term, Zanshin. It means remaining mind, or the mind with no remainder. It's often used in martial arts, but it applies equally to moments like this where you stay in awareness even after the action ends. You don't rush, you don't collapse, you remain still, quietly alive. The modern world rewards movement, hustle, updates, notifications. If your mud hasn't settled yet, someone will probably try to monetize the swirl. But Lao Tzu invites us to do something radical. Nothing, not lazy nothing, but deep, intentional, watchful stillness, the kind that isn't waiting for results, just waiting like a tree, like dust. Now, not every tradition agrees that inaction is wisdom. Some say clarity is forged, not found. But perhaps there's room for both. After all, even fire needs a pause between sparks. You let your breath come and go. It's strange how you can forget to breathe properly in a day full of thinking. Here, though, it returns to you, gentle, unobligated. And maybe you begin to see how patience isn't passive. It's not weakness. It's choosing to be present long enough for the truth to surface without being dragged out. There's a quiet irony in all this. Most of life's big questions dissolve when you stop chasing them. They float to the surface while you're looking at something else, like socks lost in the laundry, or purpose found on a Tuesday afternoon while washing dishes. Somewhere a crow calls once, then goes quiet. You wonder if it knows something or if it's just clearing its throat. The air has grown a little cooler now. Thoughts are a little slower, like leaves floating downstream. And just like that, you're here. Still. Not fixed, not finished, just here. Let's stay a little longer. There's more to see in the quiet. You notice the tick of the clock, soft, deliberate. It doesn't apologize for being slow. That's its whole thing. In this room of silence, even small sounds gain character. The whisper of fabric as you shift, the sigh of your own attention, stretching itself awake. A leaf outside turns over, maybe from the breeze, maybe just because. We continue. Lao Tzu, as you may know, had a way with contradictions. He taught that to attain knowledge, add things every day to attain wisdom. Remove things every day. It's a simple line, almost too neat. But then, again, life's big ideas often show up wearing plain clothes. You live in a world that loves adding new tabs, new goals, new affirmations. Even self-improvement sometimes feels like spiritual consumerism. But what if wisdom isn't in the stacking, but the shedding? You might have noticed it already. Real clarity feels like subtraction, like closing 10 tabs and finally seeing the sky again, like dropping the storyline and noticing the breath. In Korea, there's a practice called dansum, which means one mind. It's used in both meditation and traditional arts, calligraphy, for example. becomes a kind of meditation, not in doing more, but in focusing fully. One brush stroke, one breath, nothing extra. This doesn't mean life becomes empty. Just clearer. Imagine a room where everything is essential, every object loved, every word considered, nothing more than needed, nothing less. You pause. What might be the mental version of that room in your thoughts? There are so many dusty souvenirs, opinions you picked up but never examined, worries that never paid rent, identities that don't fit anymore but still hang around like well-meaning ghosts. What if tonight you started letting one or two of them go? Some traditions say the self is like an onion, layers upon layers. Others say it's like a mirror already whole, just dusty. Neither may be entirely true, or perhaps both are. That's the thing about philosophy. It often points in multiple directions and then chuckles softly as you try to follow all of them. But you don't need to figure it out now. Just notice the layers and the dust with kindness. A strange thing happens when you begin subtracting. Space appears, not just physical, but emotional, temporal. You begin to find yourself with time you didn't know you had, clarity you didn't buy, peace you didn't schedule. You're not striving anymore, you're witnessing. And in that space, you might glimpse something surprising, enoughness, that strange, almost forgotten sensation that you are okay even when you're not perfect, even when you're uncertain, even when you're just sitting here. There's a French word, flâner. It describes someone who strolls through the world, observing without agenda, not lazy, not lost, just looking, being, as if each moment were art, as if the city were a museum, as if the world were already enough without being fixed. Perhaps this, too, is subtraction. You don't need to be a sage in the mountains to practice it. You can start in your inbox or your closet or your calendar. You can begin quietly to ask, do I need this? And not just of things, but thoughts, worries, roles. Who told you you had to be all of that? And what happens when you stop? Some say subtracting is giving up, but perhaps it's giving into the possibility that presence is more powerful than performance. You let your breath move again, this time a little deeper. The wind outside has slowed. The chime no longer sings, but you feel its memory vibrating faintly in the bones of the air. Not everything needs to be said to be heard, and not everything needs to be held to be carried. You sit with that thought, not solving it, just watching it drift past like a paper boat on still water. And in the quiet, you feel something shift, just a little, but enough. The night is deeper now, not darker, exactly, just more settled. Like a cup of tea that stopped steaming, content with its own warmth. You're still here, breathing, listening, noticing how even stillness can have its own rhythm. You wonder, briefly, if the silence has changed, or if you've just learned how to hear it better. Lao Tzu, for the subtle sage, once said, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. You roll that one around in your mind, let it echo off the walls of your day. Nature does not hurry. It doesn't refresh the page. It doesn't yell at traffic. It doesn't schedule mindfulness time between meetings, and yet trees grow, rivers carve valleys. Seasons shift, and the moon arrives on time without a single reminder. Meanwhile, you, an arguably intelligent being, once said to alarms, and still manage to oversleep and dream about work. There's something freeing in this idea that the world, the real world, not the digital one, doesn't rush. In the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan, there's a cultural practice called lay chamri, the law of cause and effect. It's an everyday philosophy. Do good with care and patience, and trust that good will come in time, not immediately, not as a transaction, but eventually. As rain returns to rivers. It's a kind of slow optimism, a trust in the unfolding. You feel this, perhaps, as you soften your jaw and relax your shoulders. How often you've been trying to get somewhere, only to find that here where you already are contains much of what you were searching for. Some philosophies call this being, others call it non-doing. The Taoists had a word for it, wu wei, effortless action. Flow without force, like rowing with the current instead of against it. Of course, not everyone agrees that inaction is wisdom. Western minds often prefer progress, velocity, striving. There's nobility in the effort, they say, a kind of grace in the grind. And that may be true. Some of the world's most beautiful creations were built by hands that didn't stop. But then again, so was the Grand Canyon, and that took a while. So maybe you don't need to choose. Maybe tonight is not about abandoning effort, but softening. its grip, recognizing the moments when striving turns to struggle and struggle turns to suffering, and asking gently, is this the way? There's a phrase in Zen: before enlightenment, chop wood. Carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood. Carry water. Life doesn't stop needing you. But how you meet it, that can change that, so you return to your breath, not because it's trendy, but because it's honest and strangely loyal. It never left you, even when you forgot it was there. In this slowing down, you start to notice how much life gets missed in the fast forward. The way light bends just before it disappears. The sound of your own heartbeat in your ears. The odd miracle that you are here at all. A human-shaped collection of atoms sitting quietly in the dark. Thinking about Lao Tzu in the wind, you might smile at the absurdity of it. Good. It means you're paying attention. You're not racing toward understanding. You're inhabiting it. Like a cat sunbathing on a window ledge. No rush, no plans, just warm existence, and maybe, just maybe, that's enough for now. The tea in your cup has cooled, but you sip it anyway. The warmth lingers somewhere beneath your ribs. Not everything has to be perfect to be appreciated. Not everything has to be fast to be real. You sit, you breathe, you begin again, and the night, unbothered by your pace, continues to unfold. There's something about quiet that reveals things, not in a dramatic Hollywood way. No sudden realizations or thunderclaps of insight, just small truths rising to the surface like air bubbles in a still pond. You hear the low hum of distant electricity, the faint pulse of your own presence, and under it all, a kind of question. What am I carrying that I don't need? Lao Tzu offers this: he who knows others is wise, he who knows himself is enlightened. A deceptively simple line. You've probably spent much of your life learning about others, reading them, navigating their moods, fitting into their expectations like uncomfortable shoes. It's a survival skill, in a way, knowing who to become depending on the room you enter. But tonight, the room is just you. The only performance is your breath. So who are you when no one's watching? There's an ancient practice in the Eastern Orthodox Christian tradition called hesychasm. It means stillness, but also implies inner silence and prayer. Practitioners retreat inward, repeating the Jesus prayer with each breath until the words fall away, and only presence remains. Different context, same idea. Stillness reveals, but it also unsettles. You might find things you didn't expect in the silence. Old regrets, unfinished thoughts, the memory of a sentence spoken too sharply, or a dream left out in the rain. That's okay. Knowing yourself isn't about collecting perfect reflections. It's about being willing to sit with all of it, even the awkward stuff, especially the awkward stuff. Some philosophies claim that the self isn't even real, that it's a construct, bundle of stories and survival strategies. Others say it's the only thing that's real. The true self, waiting patiently behind the noise. As always, the truth probably lives somewhere in between. So what do you find sitting here? Maybe not answers, but maybe you begin to hear your own voice again beneath the roles, the quiet preferences, the half-formed desires, the little joys you forgot to name. A breeze moves through the room again, brushing your skin like a soft reminder. You are not your to-do list. You are not your inbox, your title, your follower count, or your bank account. You are not your past, though it follows you like a shadow. You are, perhaps, the one who notices, the one who sits quietly while the dust settles, the one who breathes through the pause and listens for what returns. There's a Turkish Sufi phrase, haka yürümek, to walk toward the truth. It's not a sprint. It's not even a clear path. It's more like a slow amble through fog. One step, one breath, one act of noticing at a time. And in the noticing, a kind of homecoming. You settle more deeply into the cushion or chair or space you've claimed. As your own tonight, your breath no longer needs to be watched. It's part of you now. Like a familiar tune playing in the background, you don't need to push the silence. It holds you, and for a moment, a small, fleeting moment, you remember something you didn't know you'd forgotten. That simply being here, without trying to be somewhere else, is enough. The night doesn't rush, neither do you. We'll stay with this a little longer. There's more to uncover. In the quiet, somewhere nearby, a pipe sighs. The sound is barely there, like the house remembering to exhale. You do the same. There's a certain pleasure in noticing the mundane. The creak of old wood beneath your feet, the faint itch of a thought passing through your mind. A memory rises, uninvited but familiar, like an old friend who never learned to knock. You smile, perhaps. You don't need to entertain it. Just nod, let it pass. Lao Tzu wrote, "The Tao is like a well, used but never used up. It is like the eternal void, filled with infinite possibilities." Possibility. It's a lovely word, but also a tricky one. It can inspire or overwhelm. You live in a time where possibility has become a bit noisy. You can be anything. Say the headlines, do anything, live your best life, optimize your morning routine, monetize your breath. Every path seems open, yet somehow you still feel fenced in by time, by doubt, by the never-ending pressure to choose the right thing. The paradox of freedom. But Lao Tzu isn't talking about possibility in the modern, caffeine-fueled sense. He's pointing at something quieter, a spaciousness inside you, a well you don't need to dig, because it's already there. In the Chinese tea ceremony, there's a concept called ping cha, peaceful tea. Purpose isn't performance or perfection, it's the act itself, pouring slowly, watching the steam rise, being fully there for the moment you drink that one cup. Infinite experience. You sip from your own cup now, or imagine you do. The warmth, the pause, the presence, and perhaps that's the lesson. Possibility isn't about chasing more. It's about being deeply within the moment you're already in. That can be unsettling. It means there's nowhere to escape to. No perfect version of you waiting at the end of 10,000 choices. Just this moment, just this breath, just this sip. Some would say that's limiting. Others would call it liberation. The Tao, like all great ideas, doesn't insist. It just offers, and you begin to feel the space between thoughts widen. The quiet is no longer heavy. It breathes with you. It supports you. Like the earth beneath your chair. You think of the well again, not as something deep and unreachable, but as something ordinary, grounded, waiting, useful, not because of what's in it, but because of the empty space it holds. You don't have to fill every part of yourself. In fact, that may be the very thing that stops the water from rising. You sit a little straighter, not with effort, but with ease. There's a dignity to stillness, not pride, not stiffness, just the honest geometry of a body at rest, and maybe for a breath or two, you feel it, the vastness of your own inner quiet, the gentle curve of possibility, not as pressure but as potential. In the well, always full, even when it appears empty. You stay with this a moment longer. Then, with no ceremony at all, you continue. The path doesn't move, but you do. It begins with a breath, not the kind you control, but the kind that arrives without effort. Like a tide coming home, you notice it, let it move through you like a soft question. No answer required. Lao Tzu said, when nothing is done, nothing is left undone. That line used to confuse you. Maybe it still does. How can doing nothing lead to completion? Isn't that a contradiction? Isn't that laziness disguised as wisdom? And yet look, again, there's a rhythm in life, one not made of bullet points or deadlines. Birds migrate without maps, trees shed without grief, rivers flow around obstacles, not through them. There's doing and then there's aligning. In Balinese Hinduism, there's a concept called sekala niskala, the seen and the unseen. Every action is paired with its invisible counterpart. Ceremony, for example, isn't just about what you do, it's about what you mean. The visible and invisible working together. This is what Lao Tzu may be offering. That action, rooted in presence, becomes seamless, not because you do less, but because you resist less. You stop trying to outthink the current and start floating with it. Think of the last time something came easily, a conversation that felt timeless, a walk that turned into meditation, a sentence you wrote or a meal you cooked that somehow felt right. You weren't forcing it, you were in it. That's Wu Wei, effortless presence, the art of not pushing the river. Of course, not everyone buys this. Some say mastery comes from discipline, repetition, blood, sweat, spreadsheets, and there's truth in that. Great musicians still practice scales, farmers still pull weeds, but perhaps they also listen to something deeper, to rhythm, to readiness. To the moment that says, now. You shift slightly, not out of discomfort, but out of intuition. Your body responding to its own quiet wisdom. You wonder how much you've done today out of should versus out of listening, and how it might feel to live 1 hour, not even a whole day, in accord with what is, rather than what must be. No forcing. No faking. No fixing. Just noticing, and maybe if the moment calls for it, acting from that noticing. The irony is, doing nothing is rarely actual stillness. It's often the deepest kind of attention, kind where you stop editing the moment and start living it. Some say that's naive, Others say it's the very heart of freedom. You don't have to choose tonight. Just try sitting with the thought. Let it float beside you like a candle in a darkened pool, flickering, quiet, real. You take another breath. The room hasn't changed, but perhaps you have. Just a little, just enough. There's a hush to this hour, like the world has tucked itself in. No cars, no voices, only the small, rhythmic chorus of things that don't require attention to be heard. The hum of the fridge, the distant tick of a wall clock, the occasional creak from something settling deeper into itself. You, too, begin to settle. There's a comfort in slowness once you remember how to wear it, like an old sweater, like a story told not to impress, but to be heard in the dark. Lao Tzu offers another whisper of wisdom. He who conquers others is strong. He who conquers himself is mighty. You pause. The world teaches conquest loudly, careers to build, battles to win, followers to count. Even peace is marketed as something to achieve. But what about conquering yourself? It's a peculiar phrase, especially when we've been told for years to love ourselves. How can one conquer what they're supposed to embrace? Perhaps it's less about domination and more about understanding. To conquer yourself might mean learning the terrain of your own mind, understanding the patterns, the traps, the places where fear puts on a convincing mask and pretends to be logic, where your old stories recycle themselves like broken music boxes. There's a term in Tibetan Buddhism, Shenpa. It refers to that moment of getting hooked when an emotion grips you before you even know it has a name. You see something online, someone says a word, suddenly you're spiraling. The hook is in. Conquering yourself might begin there not with denial or suppression, but recognition. There it is. The pull, the pattern, the familiar sting. And then, instead of following it, you breathe, you sit, you smile, maybe even smirk at how the mind tries to be sneaky. You notice. And that noticing, you soften the grip. Some would argue we're not meant to conquer ourselves, only to befriend ourselves, to sit in companionship with our contradictions. That might also be true. After all, there's more than one way to be mighty. But whichever language you use, the practice begins the same way. Awareness. Noticing the itch before you scratch. Feeling the thought before it turns into a storm. Recognizing that you don't have to react. You can rest. You can let it pass. You can choose your next breath. There's a small kind of power in that. Kind that builds slowly, like strength from carrying water one bucket at a time. Not dramatic. Not headline dash-worthy, but real. You shift your attention gently back to this moment. You're not trying to force clarity. You're simply making space for it. Somewhere outside, a branch brushes against the window. It doesn't ask permission to move. It doesn't worry whether it's being productive. It just moves. You do the same. One thought settles. One breath follows. And inside you, the conqueror rests not in victory, but in understanding. You're not sure when the quiet became this deep. It feels almost liquid now, like the room is wrapped in velvet, like you're drifting through thought rather than walking. You feel suspended, but safe. In the stillness, another teaching drifts. In gentle, old, and slightly mischievous, Lao Tzu once said, the soft overcomes the hard. The gentle overcomes the rigid. You let the words unfold slowly. The soft overcomes the hard. You think of water first, how it shapes mountains. Not with force, but with patience. It seeps, swirls, and slips through cracks until even stone must yield. You think of people, too. The gentle ones. The ones who speak softly but carry presence like a bell that's already rung. The ones who don't need to win the argument because they've made peace with not knowing. The soft is not weak. That's the misunderstanding. In the Filipino martial art eskrima, there's a principle called defang the snake. You don't overpower your opponent, you redirect, disarm, flow. It's about reading intention, not resisting it. You become like bamboo, flexible, rooted, impossible to break. You wonder what it would mean to live that way, not as a fortress, but as a river. Not defending every opinion, not tightening around every fear, but allowing. Softness takes a certain courage. You realize it means showing up without armor. It means letting go of being right and instead being real. It's easier often to be rigid, to declare, this is who I am, and never question it. But the gentle path asks, who are you when you let yourself be fluid? When you bend instead of brace. Some traditions praise the warrior, others the monk. But maybe the deepest strength is found in those who carry both and know when to set the sword down. You take another breath and feel something loosen inside you. A place you didn't know was clenched begins to melt. You don't have to win tonight. You don't have to prove, achieve, or defend. You can simply be soft. And in that softness, stronger than you knew, you rest your hands open, palms upward, like small boats ready to catch the rain. And if a thought drifts in now, you greet it gently, with kindness, with curiosity, with the quiet strength of water. A gentle stretch of silence pauses, not empty, but full like the pause between musical notes that gives the melody its soul. You sit within it, still, present, watching the moment unfold without needing to shape it. There's something sacred about this kind of stillness, not religious necessarily, but reverent. The way one might pause before touching something fragile or eternal. Lao Tzu once wrote, "To know that you do not know is the best. To pretend to know when you do not is a disease." The line lands softly at first, then deeper, with a weight. To not know. What a rare thing. In a world so obsessed with answers, with opinions, with certainty packaged in tiny rectangles and served through glowing screens, you scroll, you scan, you stack facts like defenses. You learn to nod even when your heart isn't sure. But Lao Tzu whispers a different invitation. Admit the not knowing. Live there if you can. Let it be a kind of wisdom. In Japanese Zen, there's the concept of Shoshin beginner's mind, a way of approaching each moment as if it were new, empty of preconception, open to wonder. You knew how to do this once before expertise, before opinions hardened into identity. As a child, every question was holy, every object a mystery. A spoon could be a spaceship, a shadow could be a story. Beginner's mind doesn't mean ignorance. It means curiosity without arrogance, the humility of not having to be right, of asking again and again, what is this? What is this breath, this moment, this self I keep trying to define? Some traditions say knowledge is power. Others suggest that too much knowledge becomes noise. A mind cluttered with conclusions cannot hear the quiet truth. And perhaps that's where you find yourself now, not in mastery, but in mystery. You don't need to figure everything out tonight. You don't even need to try. You can rest in the not knowing. You can let it be a kind of sanctuary you breathe in. Let the question rise like incense. You breathe out. Let the need. Answers fall away like ash. And for a flicker of a second, you feel it. Freedom. Not from the world. But from the compulsion to conquer it. You smile barely. A quiet, internal smile. Kind that comes from finally putting down a weight you didn't know you were carrying. You are not here to know everything. You are here to see. To soften. To stay. Somewhere beyond the walls of this quiet room, the world continues spinning. People rush. Lights change. Emails accumulate like fallen leaves. Somewhere, someone is burning toast while arguing about philosophy on the internet. But you are here, still, listening to the breath between your thoughts. Lao Tzu writes, manifest plainness. Embrace simplicity, reduce selfishness, have few desires. You let that settle for a moment. Simplicity. It sounds so simple until you try to live it, because simplicity isn't always aesthetic. It's not just decluttering your shelves or switching to earth tones. It's an inner rearrangement, a quiet rebellion against the craving for more. In ancient Greece, there was a philosopher named Diogenes who lived in a barrel. He owned almost nothing. Legend says he once saw a boy drinking from his hands and immediately threw away his cup. Extreme, perhaps, but the point wasn't poverty. It was freedom from the unnecessary. Modern life often teaches the opposite. More is better. Bigger closets, smarter devices, more followers, faster Wi-Fi, endless access to everything. But with every gain, something is lost. Time, attention, stillness. The ability to simply sit and be without the impulse to optimize. To embrace simplicity is to look at the complicated and gently step back. It's not a punishment. It's a gift. You think of a tree, it grows by letting go. Every autumn, it releases what it no longer needs. No drama, no existential crisis. Just the quiet wisdom of enough. You wonder what your next autumn could be. What might you shed? A habit, a belief, an expectation that never truly belonged to you. Some traditions say simplicity is the path to peace. Others say peace comes through effort and order. Both may be true, but tonight, simplicity is not a doctrine. It's a soft suggestion. What if less could be more? What if peace was not something to find, but something to allow? You feel the question more than you think it, and perhaps you begin to sense something quietly radical. You don't need more to be whole. You already are. Not in some perfect, polished way, but in a raw, breathing, unfinished sort of way that needs no justification. You let that truth wash through you, like rain, like stillness, like the echo of a thought you've heard before but finally understood. The quiet has a different texture now, not deeper, exactly, just closer. Like it's come to sit beside you, a silent companion who asks nothing and understands everything. You shift slightly, not to move away but to move deeper, and Lao Tzu says, be content with what you have, rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. You let the words pass through you like wind. Through tall grass, contentment, not the neon-lit version. We're sold, be happy with what you've got, but here's 30% off just in case. No, this is something quieter, older, more subversive. True contentment isn't about settling, it's about seeing what already is, without needing it to be more. There's an old saying in the Thai forest tradition, wanting is suffering. Not getting what you want is suffering, getting what you want is also suffering. You smile, perhaps reluctantly, there's some truth in it. The endless loop of reaching, acquiring, adjusting, then reaching again. Like walking a treadmill that keeps increasing speed and congratulates you for not falling off. But here tonight there's no treadmill, no race, no upgrade to unlock. Just a soft question, can you be here with this? With what you have, not as a compromise but as a feast. Your breath, this room, the calm, the thoughts that come and go like shy visitors. The little aches, the memories, even the doubt, nothing lacking. Of course, that's easier said than believed. Contentment isn't a switch, it's a practice. A slow reconditioning of attention, a willingness to look at the ordinary and see the sacred. The Japanese have a word, shibui. It describes beauty that is understated, subtle, and deeply satisfying. A worn teacup, a faded fabric, twilight sky that doesn't ask to be photographed. You begin to see your own life this way. Not as a highlight reel, but as a quiet poem, a page at a time, not every page thrilling, but every page real. Some would say contentment is complacency. That to accept what is to stop growing. But maybe that depends on what you think growth looks like. Maybe true growth isn't up or out, but in downward, rooted, not toward more, but toward meaning. You take a slow breath. You don't reach for anything. You let the moment be enough. And in doing so, you find perhaps not bliss, but something better, sufficiency, the gentle weight of enough. Night continues, faithful and unhurried. The air feels cooler now, touched by a quiet hush that says, you can let go. Even the walls seem to exhale. You follow suit. Lao Tzu offers another paradox. By letting it go, it all gets done. The world is won by those who let it go. You sit with that for a while. Let it go. You've heard the phrase 1,000 times on fridge magnets, pop songs, inspirational memes. It's been said so much, it's almost meaningless, and yet here, in the context of stillness, it regains its shape. Letting go is not forgetting, it's not indifference. It's not walking away in a dramatic montage while your inner narrator whispers something profound. Letting go is quieter than that. It's the hand unclenching, the breath releasing, the subtle shift from holding to allowing. In the Indian yogic tradition, there's the word viraja, dispassion. It doesn't mean apathy, it means the ability to stay engaged without attachment, to hold the world lightly, the way a musician holds a note before releasing it into silence. What might you let go of tonight? Not everything, just one thing. A fear, a timeline, a version of yourself that was never quite accurate. You don't have to name it aloud. Just feel its outline, then loosen your grip. Let the idea of it rest elsewhere on the shelf in the sky. In the next dream that comes to greet you, some teachings say letting go is a betrayal of commitment, that to release is to give up, but Lao Tzu suggests the opposite, that surrender is a kind of secret power, that the ones who yield flow, the ones who bend endure, the ones who release receive. You remember the river now, how it never clings to its banks, how it moves by letting go of what came before. You are not a river, exactly, but you are not a dam either. So tonight, you allow yourself this small, revolutionary act to stop gripping the moment. To stop managing the mystery, to stop pretending you know how this ends. You breathe in, you breathe out, and in that breath something quiet lifts. The world doesn't change, but maybe you do, not into someone new, just into someone lighter. There's a softness to this hour that feels almost like memory, not a memory of something specific, but of something familiar, like the way dust smells after a summer rain. or the sound of your own name spoken gently by someone who understands you are held here, not by walls or rules, but by attention, yours dot, and in this slow, unwavering gaze, something begins to open. Lao Tzu once wrote, when you realize where you come from, you naturally become tolerant, disinterested, amused, kind-hearted as a grandmother, dignified as a king. You smile at that, not because it's easy, but because it's so oddly specific. Kind-hearted as a grandmother, dignified as a king, a strange combination but not without charm. What does it mean to realize where you come from? It could mean origin, the long arc of stardust and time that shaped your particular corner of being. Or it could mean essence, the stillness beneath the self, the silent thread that runs through all your days. In Hawaiian culture, there's a word, pono. It's often translated as rightness or balance, but its deeper meaning is relational. Harmony between self, others, spirit, and land. To live pono is to live aligned, not above or below, but with. Perhaps that's what Lao Tzu meant when you remember where you come from, not your job, not your story, but your source. You stop needing to be the loudest voice in the room. You can laugh at your own seriousness. You can look at others, especially difficult others, with a little more softness. You become amused in the kindest way, because suddenly everyone is just doing their best in very convincing costumes, and maybe so are you. Some philosophies say you are a wave, temporary and individual. Others say you are the ocean itself, wearing a momentary form. It may not be necessary to choose. A wave can remember it is water. You sit a little easier now. No need to perform or fix or justify. Your existence is not a debate. It's a breath. It's a whisper of infinite time, rising for a while, then returning. You don't need to pretend you understand it all. You just need to keep listening. And if you're very still, very quiet, you might even catch a glimpse of that grandmother-like kindness within yourself. A part of you that sees your own messes and forgives them anyway. A part of you that doesn't rush your becoming. A part of you that remembers you didn't come here to be perfect. You came here to be whole, and whole includes the cracks. So you sit, you breathe, you remember, and for a moment you are amused, kind-hearted, dignified, and entirely enough. The silence now feels sacred, not because of what's been said, but because of what has not needed to be said. You've spent much of your life trying to find the right words, the right timing, the right version of yourself to present to the world. But here tonight there is no performance, just presence. Lao Tzu writes, look, it cannot be seen, it is beyond form. Listen, it cannot be heard, it is beyond sound. Grasp, it cannot be held, it is intangible. These three cannot be defined, therefore they merge into one. You pause. These words are not meant to be solved. They're meant to dissolve the part of you that keeps solving. The Tao cannot be seen, heard, or held. And yet, here you are touching it without touching it. This is where the mind often protests. It wants lines, borders, definitions. It wants the Tao to have a LinkedIn profile and maybe a certification, but the Tao refuses to be reduced. In the Islamic mystical tradition of Sufism, there's a practice called sama, or listening. It's often paired with whirling or poetry or silence, but the real act is inward listening, not to sound, but to source, the sound beneath sound. You might feel something like that now. An awareness that isn't tied to sight or sound or thought. Presence that doesn't need your help to exist. It's been here the whole time, but you had to get quiet enough to notice. This presence, call it the Tao, the self. The now doesn't speak in words. It speaks in pauses, in glances, in the way your chest rises unasked and falls unworried. You can't grasp it, but you can be held by it. You don't own it, but you can belong to it. Some traditions insist you name this mystery. Others suggest the moment you name it, you lose it. Either way, you're allowed to be here without understanding it. You're allowed to not know what this feeling is called. The mind may still try to organize the experience, but deeper than mind is the witness, the one who simply is. You rest in that now, not because you found something, but because you stopped looking long enough to feel it. It feels like everything and nothing and home. The night now is complete, not because something has ended, but because nothing is missing. You are still. The world is still. Even the thoughts, which once fluttered like restless birds, now roost quietly in the branches of your breath. There is nothing left to do. Lao Tzu's final gift in this quiet journey might be this: a journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath one's feet. Not with a plan, not with a vision board, not with certainty or confidence or cleverness, but with presence. The journey begins beneath your feet, meaning it begins where you already are, right here, right now, sitting in stillness, listening in the dark, letting your thoughts melt into breath and your breath melt into silence. In the Maori tradition of New Zealand, there's a word, Tarongawewe, a place to stand. It means home, yes, but more than that, it means a grounding, a deep belonging, a recognition that this, right here, is your place to be. Perhaps that's what Lao Tzu was pointing toward. Not a place to escape to, but a place to stand from. This moment is your Tarongawewe, this breath, this body, this pause before sleep. You don't need to begin the 1,000-mile journey tonight. You don't need to measure your path, your progress, or your enlightenment level. You just need to feel your feet. Feel the contact between you and the ground of being. Know in your bones that the sacred is not somewhere else. It begins where you are and ends nowhere at all, because the path is you. Some traditions say the journey is upward toward spirit. Others say it's downward into the earth. Still others say there is no journey at all, only waking up to the place you never truly left. You might not be able to choose which version is true, but you can choose how gently you meet yourself in this moment. With softness, with honesty, with breath, and with the quiet faith that's simply sitting here awake, aware as a step, maybe even the step. The night holds you now like a vast exhale, not asking questions, not giving answers, just being, and you finally do the same. You do not need to try anymore. You do not need to fix or build or prove or seek. The 1,000 miles will come, but tonight, let your feet stay still. Let the stars walk without you for a while. Let sleep carry you not away, but deeper. Back to the well, back to the Tao. Back to the place beneath your feet, where everything you are has always quietly waited to be remembered. And now, we let the night close around us like soft curtains drawn across a glowing window. You don't need to hold on to anything. The thoughts can fade. The breath can settle into its own rhythm. The body, tired but grateful, can rest against the quiet. Imagine yourself floating not toward a destination, but within a space that already knows you. A gentle lake, a soft field beneath stars. The hush inside a temple that exists only in your imagination. You are not being watched, judged, or measured here. You are simply welcome. Let your shoulders fall. Let your jaw release. Let the words of this evening drift into silence like the last page of a book. You don't need to finish. You've heard what you needed to hear. Even if you don't remember it all, it remains in the way your breath moves now, in the stillness you carry with you, even into dreams. This has been a small offering, a pause, a breath, a shared moment beneath the sky of Lao Tzu's timeless words. If it brought you calm, clarity, or a smile, only you notice, feel free to return. You're always welcome here. And if you're still awake, you're invited to share where you're listening from. Let us know your corner of the world and the time the quiet found you. But for now, you don't need to do anything. Just let go. Let the breath drift. Let the night be enough. And let your heart gently rest. Good night.